Hi, I'm Claire Mellentine, Registered Play Therapist Supervisor and Director of Child and Adolescent Services at Wasatch Family Therapy. Today we're going to be demonstrating how to do a family genogram. This is actually a really powerful tool to use in your initial assessments with the parent and a great way to start inviting the parent into the playroom right from the get-go. Oftentimes this is overlooked by play therapists in general, and so I really want to encourage you to start using this in your practice right from the beginning. A family genogram is often done on paper and pencil by the therapist. But what we want to do is help the parent feel comfortable in the playroom right from the very beginning. And so we're actually going to do a genogram using sand figurines and the Sandtray. So what I want you to do is I want you to choose a symbolic representation for each member of your family. And then you can just place it anywhere you want to on the sand.
Okay.
Okay.
Adventure artist.
Now once the figures are in the sand and the parent has chosen their different symbolic representations, you can also ask them questions much like you would with your child client, right? So again, we always want to make sure that we're never asking why, but you can say things like, wow, tell me more about this, or can you describe the characteristics of the gorilla? How does that fit Simon? And allow your parent permission to start exploring and getting comfortable with metaphor and the symbolic representation of play, because this is their invitation into their child's universe. And oftentimes when a child has come to therapy, parents are feeling just as frustrated and helpless and scared as the child is. And so we really want to make sure that we are inviting them in from the get-go. And so you can say things, like, tell me more about this. Another great question is, looking at this and how these are set up, is there anything you'd want to change?
That's a good question. I would like to change. I don't know. Not off the top.
Okay. Sometimes what we'll find with parents, and this isn't in here, but we'll find a lot of distance between family members. Or we'll find more like they've chosen some of the more negative parts of self that they're focused on, which is really common, especially in the beginning of therapy. And so, asking some of these questions, kind of just exploring what this relationship is like. Would you want anything different? Would you want any of these family members to be closer to one another?
I see. Okay. Well, and I've noticed that mom and dad are on one side and the kids are on the other side. I think it would be nicer to have maybe something that was more like maybe more unity.
Great.
I think mom needs a new outfit. Needs to have a nap. She's running around kind of crazy.
Yeah. And if this is my therapy session, I would explore more about those feelings. Tell me more what it would feel like to be this mom.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what it would feel like to be, the fairy princess or whoever it is that they've identified. Because you also want to make sure that we're not mapping our own representations onto the symbolic nature of this has been picked out. So I may be looking at Mowgli and thinking of the Jungle Book, but my client may have a totally different representation and symbolic meaning behind each of the figures. And so you want to make sure that we're asking them and not just jumping to conclusions and assumptions about what they're picking out. And so this is why it's really important, again, to go through and explore each of the different characters and letting your client be able to tell you what their meaning is. Oftentimes what we find in doing the family genogram as well is that the different attachment systems will come to play, whether there's a lot of distance, whether their hope is for more unity, and closeness with the parent and child. We'll see, the different patterns that emerge in communication and relationship come out with this. And it's a great insight into how the family is functioning and maintaining their family system, you know, with all the good, bad, ugly, and beauty that's inside of that. So the purpose of doing this type of an intervention with the parent individually is that this opens up the door for the parent to feel comfortable coming into the playroom, first of all. And I think for a lot of play therapists, that's where we get hung up on, is not feeling comfortable to invite the parent in, because most of the times the parent actually really wants to be there, even if they feel anxious or a little afraid or uncertain as to what their role is going to be in the child's play therapy. And it also helps open up the door to talk about what's happening in the family, not just the presenting symptoms and problems that have led a child to therapy, but what's happening underneath that. Where are the, you know, it gives you a perspective into how the relationship dynamics are playing out from the parent perspective, and then ways that you can form your treatment plan around healing. Because, you know, using this, again, this model, this representation of, you know, I would like to feel more unity in my family. It would be nice to be closer together. That's a great time as a therapist where you can say, you know what, let's figure out how we can get there. You know, what are some things that you would like seen? And again, staying away from just the behavior problems, but looking for more that emotional connection between parents. You know, how can you draw closer to your child? How could we, you know, how could this be facilitated so there wasn't such a big distance between parent and child? You know, all of these type of assessment questions can really help form your treatment plan and keep the parent engaged from the very beginning. I'm Claire Millentine, Play Therapist Supervisor, and I invite you to go to my website at clairemillentine.com, where you can find segments and segues to all of my social media platforms, as well as find helpful tips and techniques to use in your play therapy practice.